Welcome back, MTG Joe here. Today we are going to go over some deck options you can take, some of the best decks for the Historic Metagame Challenge this weekend. Notably, there's also a best of one historic qualifier that'll be happening on Saturday. Put out a video for best of one decks on the channel. You can also leverage this video for the qualifier weekend best of three event that's going to be happening next weekend. So kind of give you an early idea. We will be getting some new cards as part of the Arena Cube that's coming. I don't think anything like super material since like Eldrazi's kind of overtuned. The format is heavily influenced by Modern Horizons 3 for those who are not familiar. So somewhat like Modern, when they release a Horizon set, it does impact it quite a bit. Plus we get anthologies, stuff like that come in. So we're going to look over some deck ideas that you can take to the event. I will say some of these sample sizes are a bit smaller, so you'll see some inflated win rates, but I think disregard necessarily the win rates. These are viable decks that you can take. So the intent is to kind of show the decks itself. There's some players who are very good, play a lot of historic that can have these high individual rates, so that you might be seeing some of that come through. I will say, like, I did a cap of 55% win rate, so decks that fell under there, things like Affinity didn't do too well in terms of win rate. The Battle Crier combo was like 45% win rate. So if you don't see a deck, chances are it's under 55% win rate overall. So in terms of the meta game, I'll mention all these deck lists will be in the video description. You can copy paste there and make sure to subscribe if you haven't done so. We are like under 400 from 20,000. Free, easy, helps out, keeps you up to date with all the best decks for any of these events on Arena that come up. So popularity, Simic Eldrazi. 16%. We have Jund Goyfs, Jund midrange, Zoomer Boomer Jund at about 12, Gruul Eldrazi, so 10%, Boros Auras at 8, Izzet Wizards at 7, and then Boros Energy is about 3%. The format, Eldrazi is a clear power outlier. Compared to it, you get a bunch of soul lands, which make it very strong. It kind of preys on some of the slower decks, so that is one thing to keep in mind. You do need to have a good Eldrazi matchup if you're going to be running into it. So keep that in mind as you kind of go. For metagame challenges, it's one thing. I'd say for the qualifier especially, be mindful of the energy decks that might come up. So we're going to look the last week. We have 6,000 games played from Diamond Mythic rank. Highest win rates, Boros Energy. Again, smaller sample size, so disregard this, but more around the viability of the energy decks. So energy cards had some nerfs. If you're familiar with like the paper cards, they are more just around costs or energy. So Oscillate's Pride, absolutely busted at 1 mana. Reasonable at 2 mana, but not as explosive. Galvanic Discharge only adds 2 energy instead of 3, and Guide of Souls requires 4 energy to kind of make them fly instead of the 3 of the normal card. You have Esper Sentinel for tax effects. You have Stadium Headliner as a 1-drop that makes, it's a red card that can sack itself. It also makes multiple bodies, so it works nicely. You can also ping your own Ajani token to flip it that way there. You have your regular Bombardment, Amped Raptor, Ajani package. Then this version's playing White Orchard Phantom in the main as a kind of main board attempt to deal with the Eldrazi lands. Fragment Realities, Catch-All removal, and as well as Static Prison. And you have a Lurrus Companion in this format. You have more White Orchards in the side, so this will help you against the Eldrazi decks, greedy mana bases. You have Needle for activated abilities, Seam Rip as cheap removal, Stone of Erich for the mirrors, Sam combo, any combo that's looking to do stuff that dies. It's also Graveyard Hate, Surgical for combo hate. Thought Partition is basically a white pseudo-Thoughtseize style effect via Alchemy. You have Containment Priest that if anything's being cheated into play, you can exile it that way there. Invasion as Hand Hate, Thraben Charm, which is flexible card, deals creature damage, enchantments, or exiles graveyard. And Wrath of the Skies as a sweeper. Notably, this can hit your stuff too, so be mindful, but against things like Affinity, for example, you can take out their lands. Anything with like a lot of zeros, you can deal with them that way there as well. Moving on, we have Izzet Wizards. Again, smaller sample, but 87%. So this one here is leveraging in part the Chorus Cycle. So you have Ribald Shanty and Hymn to the Ages, some alchemy cards, but basically this is got an ability called Starting Intensity. they have a number. So this is starting intensity 2. Basically what it means is the first time you cast this card, it deals 2 damage to target creature, planeswalker. Then all the chorus cards in your hand, graveyard, library, all increase their intensity by 1. So the next time you cast a Ribald Shanty, it deals 3 damage. Similar with Hymn to Ages, it starts with intensity 1, but then based on the number of choruses you cast, it would draw 2 cards, then 3 cards, and 4 cards. It plays really nicely with things like Dreadhorde Arcanist when you can flash it back to get extra value, similar with some of the decks may play like Snapcaster Mage. And then there's another strong alchemy card, Swiftspear's Teaching. Basically, it's a red cantrip that the next creature you cast gets haste and prowess. Prowess stacks. So this plays really nicely with Dreadhorde Arcanist, just being able to haste out the creature and then immediately flashback Swiftspear's Teaching to make the next one be cast. You can also then cast spells to increase its power, to give you another way to be able to play like flashback Hymn to Ages, Flame of Anor, Wizard's Lightning from your graveyard. Symmetry Sage buffs, you have Soulscar Mage, Ponder added to the format along with Chain Lightning as the closest thing we have to Bolt. Sideboard, you have Pyroclasm for like the energy go wide decks, Cleansing Wildfire helps against Eldrazi, along with Consign to Memory, Stone of Erich for the sack graveyard kind of decks. Stern Scolding is cheap counter, Spell Pierce is cheap disruption, Meltdown for artifact affinity style decks. I may switch, like to be honest, switch a Meltdown for another Cleansing Wildfire, I'd say. I feel like you're going to run into more Eldrazi than you would Affinity. Affinity is like, you'll run into it sometimes, but it's not consistent enough without Urza Saga. All right, first of all, our Eldrazi decks. So Eldrazi is basically a colorless shell with what's your splash color. You can have Gruul, you can have Jund, which has like Dismember in it. That's why it's Jund. You can have Simic, you can have mono green, you can have mono blue. But the core of the deck is built around Eldrazi because you have 2 very strong lines. You have Eldrazi Temple in here, which basically adds 2 colorless mana for your Eldrazi spells. This one's on full 3 Gemstone Caverns, which is a little aggressive, given that it's a legendary land. It's another way to get ahead on mana, but it is a bit aggressive in terms of drawing multiples. You also have Ugin's Labyrinth as another way to imprint a 7-drop, and then you get 2 mana, so a very strong way there. You have like Sanctum of Ugin that can help you find stuff. You'll notice these kind of colorless but colored lands for your Eldrazi as ways to cast things like Eldrazi Linebreaker, which can haste out and push out a bunch of damage. You're sowing Myco Spawn that can then tutor up lands and also blow up lands. And then Null Drifter's Evoke. You also have Wastegate Battle Mage to use its Kicker's ability. This deck here has It That Heralds the End as an anthem for your colorless spells and a way to kind of reduce the cost of your bigger Eldrazi. And then this is a Flush Raker version, so casting colorless spells gives you tokens and then pings your opponent. The best card in the deck, I think, is Kozilek's Command, to be honest. This card does so much. Removal, Graveyard Hate, Ramp, card draw, just really, really flexible. It itself is an Eldrazi spell, so your Ugin's Temple can pay 2 mana for it, which is really cool. So this one's the more aggressive version of the deck. You do have access to a mountain, should your opponent be on ways to kind of blow up your lands. Also a way like play draw to kind of hedge the gemstone, I would imagine. Echoes of Eternity and kind of the fairer games just lets you get more triggered abilities in the mirror as well, I would imagine. Dismember is removal, Wastegate, just flexible bounce or artifact enchantment hate. We have Torpor Orb in here, just ways to deal with ETB style effects, Chalice to lock out your opponent on certain spells, Surgical for graveyard and combo hate. We then have, okay, so this deck here is, I would say, consistently unproven. It's come up a couple days now, or a couple videos, but it hasn't been something that I've seen extensively. It's a cool kind of concept. So it's like sneak and show, but we don't have sneak attack, and we don't have show and tell. So you're like, what the hell are you playing then, Joe? So we have an alchemy card called Caravan Consumed. So you can put an artifact or creature from your hand into the battlefield. It perpetually is an artifact creature of base power and toughness 4/4, gains haste, sacrifice at the beginning of your next end step. So what you do is basically cheat out Emrakul or cheat out Ulamog, ideally with something exiled. So then you just annihilate your opponent's board. It's not like show and tell, so they don't stick around, they don't get their original power, and it's not like you don't get the cast trigger from Emrakul, since this requires a cast. So a little bit softer than like the Legacy version, even the Timeless version. But otherwise, it's just kind of like a ramp deck. You're setting up your combo and then trying to kill them that way there. Another deck that can leverage the Ugin's Labyrinth in that respect. Gemstones, when you're on the draw, kind of cheat into play a land. Kozilek's Return as a sweeper. Just some removal, ETB stuff, cheap interaction, Consign for the Mirror, Chalice of the Void to lock out opponent spells. Naya Val combo, so this is kind of a evolution on the Samcat combo, but playing the Val Life King combo. So this one's at 83%. So how it works, Val is an alchemy card, basically states, whenever you discover, investigate, scry, seek one or more cards, do your laundry, clean your dishes, deals 1 damage to each opponent, and you gain 1 life. Well, this works as an infinite loop with Trelasara. You gain a life, you put a counter on Trelasara, you scry 1, which then gains you a life, which then puts a counter and scries, so you kill your opponent that way there. You need a way to trigger the combo, so Guide of Souls is the way to try to trigger it with life gain. Sometimes you'll see these decks play like Convoke cards or just different ways to kind of take advantage of it. Gilded Goose is a way to make food tokens. This version here has the backup combo of just like the Ajani, Amped Raptor, Goblin Bombardment, sack effect. You have Birthing Ritual to kind of dig you into the combo. Birthing Ritual, sacking Trap Finders, or Unlucky Witness can also help you dig into the combo itself. Luris is another way just through combat with lifelink to get that combo going. Haywire Might deals with artifact enchantment, hate pieces, silence for kind of storm decks, fragment, more just catch-all removal, good in the creature mirrors, deals with hate pieces, Stone of Erich in here for graveyard combo hate, or not like mirror kind of effects, more graveyard hate with Remorseful Cleric, and then Divine Purge is an interesting one. It's a sweeper but really messes up your board. I guess like against Affinity, but like there's better cards, I would say. This one's kind of the one that sticks out to me. You're such a creature-centric deck. Like I would bring in Divine Purge against this deck. It's not, it's a mirror kind of a card, so interesting one there. Simic Eldrazi, this is probably, I would say, consistently one of the most, like the best version. You have some cards here that maybe don't make the cut. Usually you'll see just the Sire of 7 Deaths over some of the Ugins. You'll see the full set of Thought-Knot Seers in here, and then no Portent of Calamity. This one here is playing Portent as a way to kind of cheat and stuff, but Simic versions, like the mid-rangier version, you have Talismans and Utopia Sprawls to help you ramp into Sonic Mycospawn, playing your big Eldrazi's, and then Emrakul on the top end to kind of take over your opponent's turn and just try to mess them up that way there. You have like Malavin Rumble to help you dig into your spells as well. Cavern for counterspell heavy decks, against when they bring in Consign, Dismember, Riz Removal, Torpor for ETB, Surgicals, Consign for the Mirror, Chalice as kind of lockout against like the Luris piles, stuff like that. So Jund Goyfs, there's a lot of different ways to build this. I really like playing this deck, but to me it has a terrible Eldrazi matchup. I know some people are saying it's like 40-60. I just find a lot of the times when I'm playing it, it feels kind of hopeless. You can have, the best way to attack the matchup is to go heavy discard, try to take over their hand, but they get ahead on mana, they have cast triggers that you get some effects, and then they always seem to find like the Null Drifter to refill, they can bounce your board. Times it's just like they're getting so far ahead on you. This version here is an interesting one. So it is a Jengantha version. You'll see Jengantha versions, ones without, which will look right after. It's not concurrently the highest in terms of win rate, but I like to compare them. So this one here, Bloodchief's Thirst is removal, Chain Lightning is like a lightning bolt, Fatal Push, you have Ignoble Hierarch as ramp, Thoughtseize for hand hate. Abrupt Decay is removal as well as Edict. Malavin Rumble helps dig you into the deck, find you your key pieces of Barrow-Goyf, Tarmogoyf, Barrow-Goyf and Pyrogoyf. Fills your graveyard as well for those effects. Then you have Dreadhorde Arcanist that can flashback stuff, Jarsoul that can flashback stuff. This one's on Wrenn and 6. Since you're naturally kind of milling, you don't have fetch lands in the format, but it gives you a way to, other than like Prismatic Vista, you will be limited on the number of basics you can kind of fetch out, but it does work with that, especially just milling over to help you find lands, can ping stuff out of like Affinity, Esper Sentinels, kind of stuff like that. And then 1 Crucius, you can discard a card late game, discard lands, kind of find your bigger spells. If you discard a 3-drop, you'll always find Pyrogoyf. Pyrogoyf is cracked card. This so much in the deck. Then you have Duress for hand hate, Surgical for graveyard hate, Cleansing Wildfire, and Dampening Sphere for the Eldrazi matchups. Knight of Dusk's Shadow as a way to slow down the Naya Val combo, but you saw in that other deck, like they'll just bombard you and kind of kill it that way there. Terra Sunder, kind of catch-all removal, Go Blank for hand hate, Calling Ritual for sweeper decks, and Ghost Quarter can be brought in against Eldrazi, kind of reoccur it with Renin 6 is kind of that like strip mine lock. So Goyf, so I play a version without Jengantha as well. Dothi Voidwalker I think is really strong. It's a really strong card in the mirror if it can stick around, since you just kind of take their Goyfs and try to win that way there. Against Eldrazi, it's basically unblockable, which if they're playing a lot of spawns is a way to kind of push through some damage. Works nicely as well with like a Noble Hierarch if it's your only attacker, since you get the Exalted. This one has Draconic Fealty, which just forces your opponent to discard a card with the highest mana value. You don't play dragons, so the rest of the card's not relevant. Lily's in here, Crucius, again, Jarsal, and your Goyf package. So very similar kind of concept, fewer kind of 1/2-ofs, and shoring up some of the numbers in the deck. Calling Rituals, Sweepers, Soul Shatter deals with bigger stuff for Planeswalkers, Edicts, Go Blank, Lilies for more hand hate, Perleus Iteration for the grindy matchups, kind of like an expressive iteration port. Dampening Sphere, Cleansing Wildfire for Eldrazi, Surgicals, you have Haywire Might for Artifact Enchantment hate. Boros Auras. So this is one of the more aggressive decks of the format. I think Auras is very strong. It's a deck that you can sometimes just lose to yourself, but other times it just runs people over. So of course, Spirit Dancer, Light Pause, just ways to take advantage of playing Auras. Either draws you cards, toolboxes you. One of the strongest starts of the deck is Demonic Ruckus plotted on 1, Light Pause on 2, Fetch Sheltered by Ghost, exiles your opponent's 1 or 2 mana play. You have Hushbringer in here over Amped Raptor. That's usually kind of the decision point. Hushbringer is very good against any of the decks with ETB effects, obviously. And then the Amped Raptor is strong against the more mid-rangey decks, things with a lot of removal. I'd probably say against Eldrazi as well. Probably just giving you more card advantage that way there. But it's kind of the core of the deck. Fragment Reality in here is removal. Lawrence Escape against non-exile removal. Pithing Needle activated abilities, Portable Hole as kind of catch-all removal for smaller things. You could probably look at Seamrip as well. In that case, Surgical is graveyard hate. Lust Alliance deals with big things. Containment Priest, things cheating into play. Hushbringer for ETB. Gruul Eldrazi, so kind of the Simic port of the Gruul version, so the bigger version. So you still have your Line Breakers, your Flush Rakers, but this one's got Chalice's main. Hit that Herald's commands. You got 1 Talisman in here. So similar concept, just a little bit chunkier of a version. You still have your Kozilek's command, Dismembers, Torpor Orbs, kind of ways to deal with graveyard hate. So this is one other version. I'm not going to go too deep into it, but just showing kind of the different flavors of Eldrazi in case you want to play one of these other versions. We have Temur Lotus Field here. This one's at 71%. So Temur for crop rotation, it's basically Izzet with crop rotation. So this is a Lotus Field combo deck. So you are looking to get Lotus Field into play. With the trigger on the stack, you can either stifle or consign to memory it. Incidentally, because you're playing consign main, very good against the Eldrazi deck. This deck can suffer at times against some more aggressive decks, but with Deserted Temple, you're able to tap and tap Lotus Field, generating a whole bunch of mana. You can use Hidden Strings, you can use Pour Over Pages to kind of chain through your deck, generate a whole bunch of mana. Artist Talent draws, discards, and loots you. You can get the cost reduction on it as well for your spells to be cheaper. And then eventually what you're trying to do is use Underworld Breach to kind of keep chaining together through your deck. You can Wish or Fave Wishes afterwards and Tendrils of Agony your opponent. You can Grape Shot them, you can draw through your deck and win with Jace. With the Lotus Field out, you have access to Temporary Lockdown, Divine Purge as sweepers. You could tutor for an Underworld Breach if needed to combo off. Thought Scour lets you kind of keep milling yourself to keep having the cards needed to chain through your deck. So it works that way there. Against Counterspell heavy decks, interaction heavy decks, you have Orange Chant, basically a silence. And then Fragment Reality is kind of catch-all removal. And then lastly, Esper Blink, not doing like crazy. We see this kind of picking up in Modern. Part of it is, I would say, inconsistency with the mana base because you don't have the full set of fetches to kind of deal with your colors. But this is kind of your scam deck. You can warp in things like Quantum Riddler and then ephemerate them. You can blink it with Felia. You could blink your overlords and get them into play. You could flicker wisp them and cheat them into play, which is cool. You could blow up lands with White Orchard Phantom. You have a cheeky unearth, but just some cheap interaction. Juggernaut Peddler is basically a pseudo Thoughtseize effect on a creature. Meddling Mage can tax your opponent. You can blow up some lands. Probably wouldn't play Meddling Mage. Seems kind of fringe. I probably just mainboard the other White Orchard Phantom, to be honest. You could play Skyclave Apparition instead of this, so there's kind of some options you can run in that slot. Chalice is an interesting one in a deck that's pretty on curve, so it does lock you out a bit. Consign in here. Eldrazi, Surgical, another Thoughtseize, another White Orchard for Eldrazi. Aven Interrupter is kind of a counter effect. Clarion Conqueror can shut off mana abilities, creatures, artifacts, stuff of that nature, and then Divine Purge is a sweeper for the low to the ground decks. So that's it. Good luck those playing. Try to do some runs, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks for watching.